The models just made a major shift overnight that changes everything we thought we knew about this weekend storm. And I need to show you exactly what happened. We're now looking at a potential bomb cyclone that could dump 2 to 3 feet of snow across the East Coast. But here's the deal. The forecast 24 hours ago looked completely different. 3 major models, the GFS, European, and Canadian, all independently shifted this storm track 50 to 100 miles west in the last 12 hours. That kind of model agreement this far out is rare. And when it happens, we need to pay attention, because cities that thought they were safe are now in the potential impact zone. Drop your city in the comments and I'll break down what this shift means for your specific area, because the difference between the old forecast and new forecast is dramatic. Let me walk you through what changed hour by hour, because understanding how we got here helps you understand why this forecast is still evolving rapidly. Yesterday morning at 6 a.m., the European model showed this coastal low staying well offshore, which would have meant minimal snow for most major cities. By yesterday evening at 6 p.m., that same model shifted the track 30 miles closer to shore, and the GFS started showing a similar trend. Overnight, the Canadian model joined in, and this morning's runs show all 3 models converging on a track that brings heavy snow to a much larger area. Here's why this matters. A 50-mile difference in storm track is the difference between 2 inches of snow and 2 feet for cities along the I-95 corridor. Right now, at this very moment, we're dealing with 2 separate but related weather emergencies that are about to collide this weekend. First, nearly 500,000 people across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee are sitting without power from this weekend's catastrophic ice storm. No electricity, no heat, and many of these families are looking at restoration times of 5 to 7 days, potentially even longer in rural areas. Second, the coldest air mass of the entire winter is dropping south out of Canada, and it's going to arrive right as these communities are most vulnerable. Minneapolis just recorded negative 43 degrees, which for context is literally colder than the average surface temperature on Mars. That Arctic air mass is now racing south at about 30 miles per hour, and by Friday morning it reaches the Gulf Coast, with temperatures 30 to 40 degrees below normal. The combination of widespread power outages and record-breaking cold creates a genuinely dangerous situation that extends beyond just weather inconvenience. Now let's talk about what's developing for the weekend, because this coastal storm has the potential to become a significant winter weather event. The setup involves moisture streaming north out of the Gulf of Mexico, colliding with that Arctic air mass, and a low pressure system forming right along the coast. When low pressure systems intensify rapidly off the East Coast like this, they can produce what we call bombogenesis, a pressure drop of 24 millibars in 24 hours. The current forecast shows pressure dropping from around 1,005 millibars Friday evening down to potentially 975 millibars by Sunday morning. That rapid intensification is what generates the extreme winds and heavy snowfall rates that make these coastal storms so impactful. Here's the timeline you need to know. Friday night into early Saturday morning, light snow begins across the Carolinas and southern Virginia. Saturday morning through afternoon, the snow intensifies rapidly as the low pressure system bombs out just off the Carolina coast. Saturday night into Sunday morning is when we see peak intensity, with snowfall rates potentially reaching 2 to 4 inches per hour in the heaviest bands. Sunday afternoon, the system begins pulling away, but strong winds continue, and by Monday morning, the storm is off the New England coast, weakening. Now let's break down the snow forecast, because this is obviously what everyone wants to know: who gets significant snow and who stays on the edge. The GFS model is showing 6 to 12 inches across much of North Carolina and Virginia, with isolated areas potentially seeing 18 inches where the heaviest bands set up. The European model is slightly more conservative, showing 6 to 12 inches, with the bullseye near Raleigh and Charlotte, potentially up to a foot in those metro areas. The Canadian model agrees with the general pattern, but places the heaviest snow slightly farther south, with Norfolk and Virginia Beach seeing 10 to 15 inches. The National Weather Service blend of all models shows widespread 4 to 8 inches from the Carolinas through Virginia, with 8 to 12 inches in the highest impact zones. Here's the uncertainty we're still dealing with. If the storm tracks 30 miles farther west, those snow totals shift significantly inland. If it tracks 30 miles farther east, the heaviest snow stays over water and coastal areas see much less. We should have better clarity by Thursday evening. Now let's talk about the wind forecast, because even if you're on the edge of the snow, the winds are going to be a major story this weekend. Saturday afternoon, we're looking at sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour along the coast, with gusts reaching 45 to 55 miles per hour. Saturday night into Sunday morning, those winds increase to sustained 40 to 50 miles per hour, with gusts of 60 to 70 miles per hour along exposed coastlines. The Chesapeake Bay area could see gusts approaching 80 miles per hour if this system tracks perfectly, which would cause widespread damage and power outages. Combine those winds with heavy, wet snow, and you're looking at snapped power lines, downed trees, and potentially days without electricity for hundreds of thousands. All right, let's go through current conditions for major cities, starting with those dealing with the most extreme cold right now. Minneapolis sitting at negative 43 degrees with wind chills approaching negative 50. This is dangerous cold where frostbite occurs in under 10 minutes of exposure. Chicago at negative 10 to 10 degrees depending on your exact location, with wind chills between negative 25 and negative 30, and light snow adding 1 to 3 inches today. Milwaukee at 0 to 15 degrees. Detroit at 10 to 20 degrees with lake effect snow, bringing an additional 2 to 4 inches through Thursday morning. Cleveland and Buffalo both dealing with lake effect, temperatures hovering around 10 to 20 degrees, with Buffalo potentially seeing 3 to 5 inches of additional accumulation. Columbus at 10 to 25 degrees, Indianapolis at 10 to 25 degrees, Cincinnati at 10 to 25 degrees, all with lingering snow making roads hazardous. Now let's shift to the cities in the Northeast that still have significant snow on the ground from this weekend and are watching this next system closely. New York City has 11 inches of snow still on the ground in many areas. Temperatures between 10 and 25 degrees, with roads remaining icy despite treatment efforts. The question for New York is whether this coastal storm hugs the shoreline or stays offshore, which determines if you get 3 inches or potentially over a foot. Boston at 5 to 20 degrees with heavy snow lingering from the weekend, and current models suggest you could see anywhere from a few inches to significant accumulation. Philadelphia at 10 to 25 degrees, Washington, D.C. at 10 to 25 degrees, Baltimore, similar temperatures. All of you are on that critical edge of the forecast. The national blend is showing 4 to 7 inches possible for D.C. and Philadelphia, but again, small track changes make huge differences in final totals. Pittsburgh at 5 to 20 degrees with up to 18 inches of snow still on the ground from the previous system, creating hazardous conditions throughout the metro area. Providence and Hartford both at 5 to 20 degrees watching this storm closely, as southern New England could see anything from light snow to a significant event. Now here's where things get really interesting. The Carolinas are sitting directly in what appears to be the bullseye zone for this weekend's storm. Charlotte currently at 20 to 40 degrees, and while that seems mild, Saturday morning you could wake up to 6 to 12 inches of snow with winds gusting over 50 miles per hour. Raleigh at 20 to 40 degrees, the models are consistently showing you in the zone for 8 to 12 inches, with some runs suggesting even higher amounts. If Raleigh sees a foot or more of snow from this storm, that would rank in the top 5 snowstorms on record for the Triangle area. Greensboro at 20 to 40 degrees, Winston-Salem similar temperatures, Durham at 20 to 40 degrees. All of you are in the potential major impact zone. The GFS model is showing particularly heavy amounts around Greenville, North Carolina, potentially over a foot if the storm tracks favorably. Richmond, Virginia at 20 to 40 degrees, current guidance showing 7 to 10 inches possible, which would be significant for the metro Richmond area. Norfolk and Virginia Beach at 25 to 45 degrees, and you're in an interesting position where you could see heavy snow or mostly wind depending on exact track. The Hampton Roads area could experience an all-time winter storm if this tracks within 20 miles of the coast, with blizzard conditions possible. Chesapeake at 25 to 45 degrees. This is where that 50-mile model difference really shows up. Anywhere from 3 inches to over a foot is on the table. Now let's talk about the cities on the southern and western edges of this system, where the forecast gets tricky with potential for snow versus ice. Atlanta sitting at 25 to 45 degrees with lingering ice from the weekend storm. And this coastal system could bring another round of winter precipitation your way. The national blend is showing the possibility of measurable snow in metro Atlanta Saturday morning, which would be remarkable given your latitude. Columbia and Charleston, South Carolina, the models are showing a wide range of possibilities, from light snow to a few inches to mostly rain, depending on temperatures. Savannah, Georgia, at 30 to 50 degrees. And while it's a long shot, some model runs suggest even you could see snowflakes Saturday morning. Nashville at 15 to 35 degrees. Memphis at 20 to 40 degrees, both dealing with ice from the previous system and brutally cold temperatures. Birmingham at 30 to 50 degrees, Louisville at 15 to 35 degrees, Lexington at 15 to 35 degrees, all experiencing well below normal temperatures. Now let's shift to Texas and the southern plains. Because while you're not getting the coastal storm, you're dealing with severe cold and ice aftermath. Dallas and Fort Worth at 20 to 40 degrees, you still have ice coating infrastructure from the weekend storm, with thousands remaining without power. The Arctic Blast Friday will drop you into the low 20s with wind chills in the teens, and your power grid is already stressed from current demand. Houston, San Antonio at 30 to 50 degrees, Austin at 25 to 45 degrees, both cities dealing with infrastructure not designed for sustained hard freezes. Oklahoma City at 20 to 40 degrees, Tulsa at 20 to 40 degrees, Little Rock at 15 to 35 degrees, all with lingering winter precipitation creating hazards. Wichita at 15 to 35 degrees, Omaha at 10 to 30 degrees, Kansas City right on the boundary between heavy snow to the north and ice to the south. St. Louis at 15 to 30 degrees with lingering snow throughout the metro area, and potentially another system bringing additional accumulation later this week. Now here's the contrast that really drives home how unusual this pattern is. While half the country deals with historic cold, the West Coast is comfortable. Los Angeles at 55 to 70 degrees with sunshine, Phoenix at 50 to 70 degrees, San Diego at 55 to 68 degrees, completely disconnected from eastern weather. Seattle at 40 to 50 degrees with rain. San Francisco at 50 to 60 degrees. Sacramento at 50 to 60 degrees. All mild and quiet. But even Florida is about to feel this Arctic blast in a major way, which brings me to an important point about infrastructure and preparation. Miami currently at 60 to 75 degrees, but by Sunday morning, temperatures could drop to the upper 30s with wind chills in the low 30s. When Miami sees temperatures in the 30s, that's a serious problem because the infrastructure simply isn't designed for it. Pipes aren't insulated, homes lack heating. Tampa at 55 to 70 degrees, Orlando at 55 to 70 degrees, Jacksonville at 50 to 65 degrees, all facing potential record cold by the weekend. New Orleans at 35 to 55 degrees, still recovering from the ice storm, and the Friday Arctic blast makes recovery efforts significantly more difficult. Now let's talk about what this bomb cyclone actually means in practical terms, because the term gets thrown around, but the mechanics matter. When a storm undergoes bombogenesis, the rapid pressure drop creates an intense pressure gradient, which is what generates the extreme wind speeds. That pressure gradient also enhances lift in the atmosphere, which is why these storms can produce such incredible snowfall rates. We're talking about potential rates of 2 to 4 inches per hour during the peak of the storm Saturday night, which is when roads become completely impassable. At those snowfall rates, even if plows are actively working, they simply cannot keep up with the accumulation, leading to stranded vehicles and dangerous conditions. The other characteristic of these rapidly intensifying coastal storms is the development of mesoscale snow bands, which are narrow zones of very heavy snow. These bands can produce localized amounts that are significantly higher than surrounding areas, which is why we see such variability in final snow total. Thunder snow is also possible with this system, which occurs when the lift is so strong that it creates convective processes similar to summer thunderstorm. All right, let's address the key questions I'm getting. First, when will we have a final forecast with specific city-by-city totals? Thursday evening into Friday morning is the critical time frame when models should converge, giving us much higher confidence on exact track and snow amounts. Second question, what are the realistic scenarios at this point given current model trends and how they've been evolving? Scenario 1 has about 50% probability. A classic coastal storm producing significant snow from the Carolinas through the mid-Atlantic, with the Northeast getting clipped. Scenario 2 has about 35% probability, a more suppressed track that keeps the heaviest snow in the Carolinas with lighter amounts farther north. Scenario 3 has about 15% probability. The storm tracks farther offshore and most areas see less than forecast, though coastal winds would still be significant. Third question, how much snow are we realistically talking about for the hardest hit areas based on the ensemble guidance? The most likely outcome shows 6 to 12 inches across the Carolinas and Virginia, with isolated higher amounts to 18 inches where banding sets up. The Mid-Atlantic, including DC, Baltimore, and Philadelphia, could see 4 to 8 inches, with higher amounts if the track shifts slightly west. The Northeast, from New York through Boston, is the biggest question mark, anywhere from a few inches to potentially significant accumulation. Now let's talk about preparation, because whether you get 4 inches or 14 inches, you need to be ready, and the preparation steps are the same. Stock up on food and water for a minimum of 3 days, because if you get significant snow combined with power outages, you won't be leaving your house. Get medications filled today. Make sure you have batteries, flashlights, portable phone chargers, and if you have medical equipment that requires power, have a backup plan. If you have a generator, test it now to confirm it's operational. Make sure you have fuel. And remember, generators must stay outside at least 20 feet from windows. Carbon monoxide poisoning from improperly placed generators kills people every winter storm. So take this seriously and follow safety guidelines. Check on elderly neighbors and family members. Make sure they have adequate supplies and a warm place to go if they lose power during extreme cold. Airlines will begin canceling flights Friday if this forecast holds. And once the storm starts, roads become impassable quickly with these snowfall rates. The combination of heavy snow and 50 to 70 mile per hour winds creates blizzard conditions with zero visibility, making travel not just difficult, but genuinely dangerous. Now let's look at the wind chill forecast, because this is where the Arctic air becomes truly dangerous across a massive area of the country. Friday, at those wind chills, frostbite occurs in less than 10 minutes on exposed skin, making any outdoor activity potentially hazardous. The Arctic air continues pushing south through Sunday, with wind chills reaching single digits even in northern Florida, particularly in the Panhandle region. Tallahassee could see wind chills around 5 to 10 degrees, which is extremely dangerous for a region where average January lows are in the 40s. The Northeast will experience wind chills of -20 to -30 below zero, and the Appalachian region could see -10 to -20. Florida could run nearly 40 degrees below average, with potential all-time record lows Sunday morning in cities like Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville. This Arctic air mass remains locked in place through next week, with temperatures staying well below normal and no significant warm-up in sight. The National Weather Service will likely begin issuing winter storm watches Thursday for areas in the potential path, upgraded to warnings Friday as confidence increases. The point is, we're in an active pattern that favors repeated systems, and any snow that falls this weekend will stick around given the sustained cold. Drop your city in the comments and let me know what specific information would be most helpful, whether that's timing, totals, winds, or cold impacts. Subscribe. This is still an evolving forecast. Models are refining the details, but the potential for significant impacts is real, and preparations should start now. For those, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next update.